Well, I guess people are here, so we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks for CoinGecko for hosting this DeFi meetup. It's going to be a really cool chat today, especially, I guess, after the events of the last few weeks. So I guess we can jump right into it. I wanted to get started by giving everyone an opportunity to just give an intro for themselves. So, Kain, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm Kain Warwick, founder of Synthetix. Synthetix is a synthetic asset issuance platform on Ethereum. So we run an exchange called Synthetix Exchange, where you can trade a whole bunch of different crypto assets, Forex. We've got equities now, and a number of different indexes. So that's me.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. Thank you, Kain. We'll go on to Loi. Do you want to just give a quick intro of yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Loi. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kyber. We have been building the Kyber as a on-chain liquidity endpoint, so that any users, any dApp can integrate and use for the decentralized trading use case. Yeah, we have been around since 2017, and we've been building and growing.
Cool. Yeah, on to you, Leighton.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of PoolTogether, and we're building a prize savings protocol for Ethereum. Basically, the idea is a savings account that's incentivized with the chance to win prizes, as opposed to just accumulating interest incrementally.
Yeah, so sorry, as I was saying, we can jump into some general questions here. I guess like we're all working from probably home or from somewhere that maybe we got stuck in. I'm curious to hear how you're all faring during the global turmoil here. Leighton, I guess I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, feeling pretty optimistic. I think there's a couple scary days there. The Black Thursday, I saw a lot of my personal wealth disappear. but no, overall, I think I'm very thankful to be healthy and very thankful to still be able to work in a really exciting field that I think has a chance to help a lot of people who are having problems right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know, Loi, you've got quite a big team at Kyber. So how's it been managing them kind of like in a remote fashion?
I think Kyber team has been distributed, right? And then like we have offices in Singapore and Hanoi and Europe as well. So working together across team has been the same, right? But I think for the local team is a bit hard for them to switch from the working in the one central office to working remotely from home. But I think it took them a couple of weeks to readjust, and now everything's back to normal. I think one thing that we have to really talk to the team members is to make sure that their future at Kyber is still guaranteed, as in we are not going to fire anyone, right? Because I think it's just bad economic. That's one of the things that people need for certainty. But we are not growing the team either, right? So keep the team size, focus on building what we have been planned for 2020. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it helps to have a clear goal, clear roadmap in mind, so people know exactly what they're doing, even if they're working remotely. Kain, you as well. I guess you're in Australia with me as well, so another Australian guy. But how does Synthetix work remotely normally, or is this a new thing for you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got an interesting setup because we share an office with the Blue Shift team. So there's about 25 people in the office, and we have since the early Blue Shift days back in 2014, 2015, done working from home on Wednesdays. So we've kind of had this, I guess, even with the people that are in the local office, kind of thread of working from home at least once a week, right? So we've all got kind of a setup. We know how it works. We know, so the adjustment wasn't as bad as it would have been, I think, if we'd never worked from home. And then obviously a lot of people in the team travel a lot. We also have people in the office in New York as well. So we're pretty used to working remotely and kind of dealing with different time zones and stuff. So it's been okay. I think in some ways, there's always trade-offs, right? But I think in some ways it's been better, because everyone's been very focused on work. There hasn't really been much else to do. So we've been pretty productive, but then, there's definitely a bit of friction that we've kind of had to deal with the change. So, good and bad.
Yeah. I think the funny thing about remote work is it's very time zone dependent. I think for sure, like for us in Australia, we don't sync much with the rest of the world. In terms of time zone, I know for me personally, I work with a team based out of San Francisco, so the time difference is quite extreme there. But as I've been remote working since I joined, it's been okay for me. But my team basically, went from the office to working remotely, and it seems to have worked out fine as well. So yeah, I think, as you said, there are trade-offs to these sorts of things, and different teams are going to have different experiences with remote work for sure. All right, moving on to an open topic before we go into the DeFi questions. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on kind of the correlation that we've been seeing between crypto and the global markets. I guess since this coronavirus stuff began, there's all these posts that, Bitcoin has been correlated with the traditional markets, and it's kind of been a leading indicator since the Bitcoin markets trade 24/7. And people are wondering, when is Bitcoin going to decouple? This is kind of like what it was created for. Why are we seeing these correlations kind of play out? I guess, Leighton, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert trader, but I think it definitely is a narrative violation, right? Like, if you were ever going to develop a narrative where Bitcoin should be going up, it's right now. And it just hasn't. So that's the facts. I think, I still am very bullish on Bitcoin, like, and Ethereum, obviously, and crypto assets in general. And I do think the narrative makes sense of like, okay, in crashes, in super dramatic crashes, everything's highly correlated because everyone just wants cash. And I do think that the idea, placeholder capital's kind of been pushing this narrative of like, it's going to be the first asset to recover. And I do think that makes sense. And as like we're going to see, at least in the US context, like as we're going to see the ramifications of the monetary policy, I do think the Bitcoin proposition will
for sure. Yeah, I guess, Kain, your thoughts?
Sorry, I was just laughing about David Hoffman's comment. The entire Australian crypto industry is in this webinar. Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's good to see you here, David. So I think you mentioned decoupling, right? And I think one of the things that we've sort of seen is it's almost a decoupling of reality, right? Like markets are just kind of decoupled from any normal sense of tracking the actual performance of the underlying businesses. So we're seeing S&P go up and down and just move around, almost like a game between people kind of trading against each other rather than attempting to kind of assess the underlying value. And so at this point, anything could happen, right? So I think we're kind of seeing that there's just a lot of correlation because there's a lot of chaos going on, and it's very directional movement. So my sense is until we get some clarity around how the crisis is going to sort of play out over the next 6 to 12 months, it's just going to continue to be very sort of chaotic markets and not very clear what the sort of short-term play is going to be.
Yep, for sure. Loi, what your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I saw one of the reports recently that technically says the price of Bitcoin has been following the SP 500 index, right, quite closely. So I think that is quite interesting, and one of the possible implications is that the price of Bitcoin and also like the stock has been has been mainly controlled by the big monies, right? And they move when they move the asset from the risky asset like stock and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin price will get affected as well. But that's one of the theories, right? I think as Kain mentioned, anything could happen, and I think the most concerning part is that the price of or the stock and the market is not following what is happening in reality, right? When a lot of unemployment and also the pandemic is still growing. So it's been quite strange.
Yeah. Sorry, Kain,
just on that point, it's almost people trying to outthink each other, right? Like they're trying to outtrade each other and not looking at the underlying reality, right? Like trying to work out what are central banks going to do. It's turned into a game rather than kind of some attempt to price assets, right? It's a bit crazy.
Yeah, well, I guess that's exactly what we're seeing in the US each week when the jobless claims come out and the stock market just pumps. It's like, okay, what? So yeah, definitely interesting times. But yeah, okay, thank you for your answers there, guys. We'll move on to what I wanted to talk about mainly for the panel was Black Thursday. So Black Thursday was the day in crypto, I guess, just over a month ago, where I guess DeFi saw its biggest test yet, with ETH dropping in 40% in price within like a day, which obviously affected a lot of DeFi protocols on Ethereum. Gas prices spiked up to 200 Gwei, which is really insane, and this led to a kind of cascading effect where MakerDAO became under-collateralized. ETH price hit double digits. It was pretty crazy, but it was after this day, like we had the postmortems come out for each of the DeFi protocols, and it looks like some protocols actually benefited greatly from this crash. And I think obviously Kyber is one of these protocols, and I went and looked at Kyber's stats, and on that day, Kyber kind of smashed through its all-time high volume, its trading volume. And I'm curious to hear, Loi, how did the protocol handle the increased usage from this, and kind of any interesting insights from all the activity you saw on Black Thursday?
Right. So I think on the Black Thursday, what we have been constantly monitoring is the gas price of the network, so that we have to change the network parameters to allow higher gas price, right, from the market makers. Okay, so one of the things that Kyber has been trying to build is to have a large network of market makers so that we can handle different market situations, right? So we have more market makers, and we also have a diverse set of market making type, including professional market makings, automated market makings, and even bridge market making, we source liquidity from Uniswap and from overseas, and hopefully in the future we can do it with Synthetix, right? And I think that helps a lot in severe situation like the Black Thursday, because we did see one or two market makers, like the professional one, they couldn't quote because the gas price is just too high, right? And they're not going to take the risk. But we are still but we still have the others to market make and to serve the market.
Yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like Kyber, handled it quite well, even though the gas prices increased so much. Over to you, Kain. I saw that SNX, kind of the main collateral that backs the Synthetix system, fell over 40% in value on Black Thursday, along with most tokens. But I think what's unique with SNX is that, as I said, it's the main collateral that backs the system. So I'm curious to hear, kind of how did this affect the overall system stability? And was it a temporary thing, because obviously the price bounced back up really fast after it as well?
Yeah, so we have a very high collateralization ratio for exactly that reason, and so I think the lowest we got was maybe about 350% or something like that. So still very over collateralized, even with the price shock that we saw. So from that perspective, the network remained fully collateralized throughout the entire Black Thursday period. We did have some issues with oracles. As I think anyone who was using oracles, because oracles are still transactions that need to be pushed on chain. Funnily enough, our oracle, our internal centralized oracle that we're deprecating and moving away from, performed actually quite well. Didn't have any issues. It's been through some heavy load testing and over the last couple of years, so it's pretty robust. But we definitely had to make a few changes just to kind of slow the system down, essentially, to be able to absorb that. I think the other sort of question is how did the SUSD peg fare? We saw some issues with DAI, and kind of knock-on effects from the under collateralized auctions. And I think we're in the process of seeing the SUSD peg stabilize, and it's been as stable over the last few weeks, since that that we've seen probably in the last year. And a big part of that's been the curve pool that we set up through Iron, which is kind of working pretty well. So I think we're seeing that the peg is holding pretty strong, and because of the over collateralization, there was never really an issue where people started to get concerned or try and sell off synths or SUSD or anything like that. So overall, we're pretty happy with how the network performed.
Yeah, for sure. That large over collateralization obviously helped, and I guess from your perspective with Synthetix is like SNX is less liquid than something like ETH, so you expect it to fall in value harder. But we actually saw ETH fall just as hard, which is why I guess Maker had issues as well. It's just because we didn't expect ETH to fall that high. It's kind of like what they call a black swan event, and I guess that's why we got Black Thursday as well. Leighton, I think PoolTogether is in an interesting situation now due to, I guess, like the main product that you guys have is the no loss lottery, right? Where you can we can win a prize, I guess, based out of the interest on different stable coins. But the stablecoin interest rates are now like pretty low, right? So I'm curious to hear, like, has that hampered adoption for you guys, or like, are you working on different ways to kind of like pull in different assets and get different interest rates on the platform to kind of make up for the lower interest rates on stablecoins?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, yes. In the short term, it's been, I think SNX professor here is pointing out the prize this week is $77, whereas like 2 weeks ago it was like 2,000. So that's a very, very, very significant drop. It's interesting though, we have quite a different product compared to like Kyber Swap or Synthetix, and that like we are much more the protocol is much more oriented towards a consumer savings use case, and so we haven't seen actually super significant outflows. We have seen some capital outflows from like the whales, but a lot of people are still in, and actually in the last 6 days we've had 30,000 DAI added to the pool from like 300 unique new users. So yes, it has impacted it, but maybe not as much as you might expect right off the bat. The good thing is, yes, from a bit of a longer term perspective, absolutely, we think there's ways to leverage more than just interest to return a yield. And I think the obvious choice is something, whether it's Curve or something similar to Curve, where we could be providing liquidity where you're earning interest plus trading fees. So that's very much, it's not something we're doing right now because we are pretty risk averse in that we don't want to put users' funds anywhere that, we don't want to put users' funds anywhere because we're not custodying the funds, but spinning up a new pool, we're conservative in that. But yeah, it's definitely, and I think the other big thing for us is the DAI peg, right? So the fact that DAI has been over peg is, one, it has the initial effect of the interest rates being low, but two, if people want to get onboarded, they have to pay an extra 2% to join. So it's really interesting. I think it's funny because you mentioned the whales, getting out of the pool basically, and we notice the same thing with TokenSets. Whales are very finicky. Like they'll put money in a big way, then they'll pull it straight back out. Whereas the smaller fish, I guess, are in it for the longer term. They don't mind because they maybe put like $1,000 in or whatever it is, and they'll let that ride out. But whereas the whales are just they're so finicky, which is really funny. Cool. All right, thanks guys. Sure.
So next we can move on to a topic I wanted to talk about, talking about like where DeFi is today. So obviously had the Black Thursday, and we're now over a month out from that. We had value locked in DeFi peak to about $1.2 billion USD back then. It's about 700 million today. I think it's a bit higher than that. I haven't checked yet. The ETH price went up overnight, so I have to check on that one. But I guess like a lot of that value is mainly due to the price of ETH and also SNX as well. But I guess like one example for us at TokenSets is that our total value locked actually kind of like skyrocketed after Black Thursday due to the various sets performing very well. So as I was saying before, some protocols benefit greatly from this sort of stuff. Like even though the total value locked is down, I think what we saw is the value, maybe go out of other protocols and into different ones. So we kind of like saw a readjustment there based on market conditions and like, I guess like the risk profile of different people at this point in time. But yeah, I'm curious, Leighton, to get your thoughts here on where DeFi is today, because I recently saw that Coinbase's Bootstrap fund put 100K USDC into PoolTogether as like a pool sponsor, which is really, really awesome. I guess like, has that helped with adoption of PoolTogether? Like, have you gotten new users from Coinbase's side, and kind of like, yeah, what kind of users are you seeing on the platform these days?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a continuing trend towards consumerization, I would say. And what I mean by that is like more normal retail users. So like a good stat that represents this, I think this is rough stat, but like in January of this year, I think 5% of the pool was people who had 100 DAI or less. And as of today, that's like 20%, right? So we're seeing, and the total pool size has grown significantly. So it's not like it's shrinking. So we're seeing as we're growing, more of the growth is coming from smaller people rather than in the beginning, it was a lot of bigger people. So the Coinbase thing definitely helps. Not so much really, it doesn't make that big of a difference in terms of prize or anything like that, especially right now. But it does help as a stamp of approval. Obviously, Coinbase has like an auditing process with their any distributions they make, and so kind of making it through that and is I think a good stamp of approval for sure, and that makes consumers more likely to use the product. But from our perspective, you know, the whole ecosystem is in a healthy place, and I think, you know, yeah, sure, downturn notwithstanding, but the onboarding ramps are consistently getting better every day, and that's the most important thing in our opinion. So we're building for that future where it's, you know, it's going to be as simple as to join a prize savings pool as it is to you know, buy something with your credit card or send
exactly.
money with
It's cool that Coinbase is getting so involved with DeFi across, you know, with this USDC Bootstrap fund. They integrated a few DeFi apps into the Coinbase mobile wallet app, and you know, Coinbase is like where retail goes to when they come into crypto. So getting them from that to DeFi like really quickly is really awesome.
Yeah.
So, and you know, as you were saying before, PoolTogether is really geared towards these more consumer kind of like retail based people. It's supposed to be just dead simple for them to save money while having a chance at winning this prize, which is really cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
On to you, Kain. I saw that Synthetix is gearing up to release kind of more real world synthetic assets onto the Synthetix platform. Do you think like this will work to bridge the gap between DeFi and the traditional finance system? And I guess on top of that, have you seen interest from traditional finance people in, you know, coming onto Synthetix and trading on there?
So I don't think so in the immediate term. You know, most of the demand that we're seeing for traditional assets, equities, and things like that, coming from crypto traders who are crypto native that want kind of a single, you know, venue to trade everything, if that makes sense. So, you know, they want to be able to trade equities and Bitcoin and go back and forth between them. And I think that's what Synthetix Exchange will offer. Where I think there is the potential to kind of help bridge the gap are people who may not have access to a brokerage account, and, you know, can go and buy Tesla shares or, you know, whatever it is that they want to buy individual equities. And so I think that as we get, you know, as Leighton was saying, better onboarding, better on-ramps, et cetera, you know, we'll become more possible for someone in, say, an emerging market with a smartphone to get onboarded into the Ethereum ecosystem, and they may choose to, you know, buy an ETF or an index or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak personally that I would much rather use a platform like Synthetix or, you know, just a crypto native platform to do this sort of stuff than a traditional finance system, because it's just a real pain to use anything in the traditional finance system after using crypto. It's just like, you know, so much better. I mean, it's not as noob friendly, and there's no one really holding your hand and things like that. But overall, I think that it's just much better, and it's gonna keep getting better, which is really cool.
I'm loving the troll box over here, by the way. Like as we're going, like just streams of trolling on the side. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, David Hoffman.
Definitely new experience on a panel.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, over to you, Loi. I guess today DEXs suffer from both scaling issues and issues of high fees, as you were talking before about obviously the gas price spiking affected Kyber a little bit. But despite that, it seems that kind of these swap-based DEXs have actually outsized growth compared to the more order book-based DEXs. I guess, like, do you expect this to continue, or is there a ceiling on how large even these swap-based DEXs can grow without additional scalability?
Right. So I think one of the things that we have been seeing on Kyber is the volume from the integration, particularly from all the DeFi integration. Okay, so just give you a couple of numbers, right? I think around a year ago, the volume coming from Kyber Swap, our in-house a website for people to trade with Kyber, was around 70 to 80% of the volume coming to Kyber, right? And I think today the volume is around, I guess, roughly 40%, and the rest coming from all the integration and people who interact with our smart contract directly, right? So that show, I think there's definitely more and more volume coming from the DeFi ecosystem that just interact with our smart contract directly, right? That is something that only on-chain trading protocols can do better, right? Because if you are talking about something like off-chain or hybrid system, it's very hard for DeFi to integrate with. I think that's also like one of the reasons why at Kyber we have been getting a lot of people to build with us, because it's just quite easy for them to just integrate directly with our smart contract. They don't have to talk to any like off-chain servers or things like that. They just have like to call a smart contract from their own smart contract, and that's it, right? But I think I do see the concern about scalability and also the gas fees, because during the Black Thursday we I think a few transactions on Kyber cost something like $10 to the end users, right? But if you look at the average like gas price that people have to pay or gas fees, I think it's from like $1 to $1.5 dollars. And if you look at the average trade size, right? I think on Kyber it's around almost like $1,000 per trade. And I think when you compare the two numbers, it's around like 0.1% for the gas fees. I think which is still acceptable to many of the traders, right? I think they're paying a lot higher fees on centralized exchanges, just for the ticker fee, right? I think Coinbase now, I think they take up to like, I'm not sure if the number is correct, but like 0.2% or even higher, right? So I think short-term wise, we are not that worried, but I think in the long term, this must be addressed, right? And we also like, I think a couple of other projects also looking at other solution like ZK rollup and even like ETH 2.0 to see whether that could be a solution. But we only want to do that if two things, right? First of all, the user experience won't be worse. I mean, of course, if it is a little bit worse, but the scalability is like much higher, then I think we can still do it. But if it is like the users will have to go for 10 more steps in order to do anything with Kyber, then I think it's a straight no, right? And I think the second one is, which is also like the most important one, is the composability with other dApp and other smart contract. If we cannot like do that easily, I think it's gonna impact everyone, right? Not only Kyber.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, scalability is a problem for everyone, definitely. And I think there are enough people and teams working on it now, especially with optimistic rollups, which is a really hot technology recently that's been kind of talked about a lot. And Loop Ring protocol went live with their exchange based on rollups as well, which is really cool. So I think it's going to be a problem that we solve, and it won't be something that's too far in the future. So I'm really looking forward to those going live. And because I do fear that we're going to reach a ceiling with this growth, where we're going to have these persistently high fees on Ethereum due to how much growth we're seeing. regardless of market, action. So I do hope to see these scaling solutions coming online, a lot faster. But I guess like this year, we'll probably see more of them come online. And as I said, it's a problem that affects all of us. So I expect it to get resolved. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So next topic I wanted to talk about was on-chain governance. Now, this has been a really, really hot topic, I guess, especially recently with Maker having to enact a few different things with their protocol, such as printing more MKR tokens to cover the under-collateralization. We had Compound announce their own governance token and platform, which actually went live today. Kyber has announced the Kyber DAO upgrade, and the Maker Foundation is actually also moving really quickly to completely decentralize their protocol, just hand everything off to Maker governance. So I'd like to get, yep. So,
2 years.
Well, they're trying. I mean, lately they've been trying really quickly. I've seen a lot of kind of updates, I guess, from them.
I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah. I guess it's taken a while, but now they're just like, oh crap, we got to do it. But yeah, definitely. I guess Kain, the perfect segue there to start with you. I know that the Synthetix community is really active in your Discord channel and often helps to guide the product decisions that your team makes. Can you walk us through the typical governance process that so-called Synthetix improvement proposals go through, and where token holders come in kind of the governance process at this point?
Yeah, so the idea behind SIPs came from the EIP process, right? And the reason why we took that process and kind of modified it, I guess, for the Synthetix community was essentially to align with rough consensus, right? This idea that the community is sort of responsible for coordinating themselves to agree on which changes should be made to the protocol. And that was really important for us, to kind of, I guess, implement as early as possible. And so we've been running SIPs now for maybe a little bit more than a year. We've had about 50 that have been implemented. So, we're pretty happy with how the process is going. And I think it's an alternative to the idea of just having straight on-chain voting, right? When you have direct on-chain governance, there's a whole bunch of potential issues, and there's obviously projects that have been using that for a long time and are exploring that. And then there's kind of this rough consensus approach. So for us, anyone in the community can propose an SIP. They then need to be responsible for aligning the community to that SIP. And building up consensus around it. And then if the community reaches consensus that the change should happen, then we'll essentially work together to coordinate and implement it and get it included in an upcoming update. So that's kind of the process. And what we're working on now is really handing back more control to the community and token holders. Because at the moment the upgrade process that we have is very centralized. So even if the coordination mechanism and the consensus is very decentralized, the actual process itself of coordinating upgrades is very centralized. And so one thing we're working on with Aragon is implementing essentially a mechanism for token holders to veto any changes at the contract level. So it's essentially management by exception, right? So if the rough consensus process is working and everyone's happy, and the protocol DAO implements something that there's no issues with and consensus is genuinely there, then there's no problem. If the protocol DAO tries to implement something for which there isn't consensus, then the token holders can step in and say, actually, no, we're going to veto this upgrade. So that's one of the next major changes, and it's going to be a huge shift in the kind of control, I guess, of the network, handing it back to token holders.
Yeah. I guess a follow-up question on that then is, what's been the most, I guess, controversial SIP that's been put forward to the community?
Probably the change to the monetary policy, which I was against initially, wrongly or incorrectly, I guess. So I eventually came around, but we changed the monetary policy back in early 2019, and the change was maybe debatable, I guess, whether the exact structure of how we implement it was right. And so one of the community members, Delta Tiger, stepped in and said, actually, I've got a better proposal for how we should implement this monetary policy, and build consensus around it, and was able to kind of get to a point where the community really rallied around the change, and it was implemented maybe I think 4 or 5 months ago now. So that was probably one of the most controversial, and it took 4 or 5 months to build consensus around that change. But I think everyone's now quite happy with the process. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's obvious that monetary policy changes are going to be very controversial as they affect like all token holders for sure. So yeah, it's cool. I guess on that note as well, like the changes I think have been like just really positive for Synthetix in general. Obviously, we saw the growth over the last year as well, and I guess that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk to Loi about, because Kyber's actually announced a few different things recently. Including the Catalyst upgrade, the Kyber DAO, as I mentioned before, and some new token mechanics too. So, Loi, could you give us a high-level overview of what these upgrades are and why you think that they are a powerful addition to Kyber?
Right. So we have been building and working on this Catalyst upgrade for quite a while. And I think we have to thank a lot of people who help us shape the key details of the upgrade, including Kain as well. So there are a few key things that we introduced in the Catalyst upgrade. One of that is obviously the Kyber DAO, which is the first decentralized governance for Kyber, right? We have been joking with the team that now we have built something that is worth governing. Let's decentralize the governance, right? And the key idea is that we want to give the community and the token holder more say in how they want to develop the protocol, right? And we also want to give them a means to contribute to the development of the protocol as well. So the key idea here is that now the token holders, they can vote on a few important parameters for the network, including the fees, how to distribute the fees, and because at Kyber we have been the network has been collecting a lot of fees lately, right, because of the network growth, and so far we just burn entirely the fees, right, which is in KNC tokens, and we realized that if we can actually utilize these fees and to incentivize other stakeholders in the ecosystem to actually work more to grow the protocol together, then it's actually much better, right? Because burning the KNC token will reduce the supply of KNC, and that will, theoretically benefit everyone, right? But we want to actually incentivize and reward the people who actually actively contribute to Kyber, and that is something that we learn a lot from other protocol like Synthetix, and we wanted to have that kind of active community and the one that actually contribute to the development of the protocol should be rewarded. So after Catalyst, there will be a DAO. There will be reward to the DAO members who actually participate in the governance, and the DAO will be responsible for the important parameters like how much is the network fee, how much they can, how they want to distribute the fees and things like that. And eventually, we also want to give them the vote on which are the direction that Kyber should go in the forms of KIP, right? We have been working on that, and I think it will be launched soon after Catalyst.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the market's really responded as well to the new upgrades and the new token mechanics that you've put in place with KNC rising in price over the last few months after kind of being on a lull. Even though the Kyber protocol was growing, it wasn't being reflected so much in the token. So I think that the market is definitely reacting very well to the new upgrades.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Lastly, Leighton, on to you. Now, I know that PoolTogether doesn't have any on-chain governance currently, but I'm curious, does your team have any plans to, this is probably a long-term thing, but any plans to transition management of the protocol over to a DAO, or I guess get more community involvement into the governance of PoolTogether in general?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like you said, just contextually, we're earlier in the path than several, a lot of these other protocols that are, whether it's Kyber or Uniswap or Compound or Synthetix that are all kind of doing this now. So we definitely share that goal. I think given the relative simplicity of the PoolTogether protocol, I don't think it's that far away. I think it's something we'll do this year. Potentially even, you know, in like the third quarter. So it's something that we're very actively architecting right now. So yeah, that's our goal. And it's very helpful to have, like, for us to now kind of be able to follow in the footsteps of all these other great protocols that are taking, you know, all slightly different approaches.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to learn from, I think. You know, Synthetix has been like a really good pioneer here with token mechanics, I think. Maker has been a really great pioneer with on-chain governance, so we can learn from them in that area. So there's just, yeah, there's like a wealth of information out there now for all these other protocols to copy and you know, emulate and try to improve upon, which is really cool to see.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's our goal at TokenSets as well, or for Set Protocol. Basically, well, I think we're in the middle of that path now. We're not obviously at the beginning, but we're seeing some really cool growth lately, and we're deploying a lot to our products. So we're thinking about community governance a lot too. So I think, yeah, as you said, there's like this path that protocols follow, and you know, once they get to like the middle path, it's probably when they start thinking about governance. All right, I'd like to move on to, I guess, like the last topic I wanted to speak about was, I guess, what's next for each of your protocols. So I'll start with you, Loi. What's next for Kyber in like the next couple of months? Like, what are the major things you guys are doing and launching? I know that you do a lot. I read the Kyber ecosystem reports every month, which is really cool. But yeah, I guess what's big in the next couple of months for Kyber?
Obviously, is the Catalyst upgrade for us. We are targeting around June to launch it. But there are a lot of things that we want to launch together with Catalyst, including you know, working with other staking platforms so that they can have the currency holders to stake easier. And we're talking about like 3 or 4 different staking platforms now, and a few of them already confirmed. And I think after Catalyst, there's still a lot of work in onboarding more, you know, professional market makers, you know, improving the market making infrastructure so that, you know, they can work with Kyber easier, and you know, the usual driving the growth of the Kyber ecosystem as well. We want to work with more DeFi apps. We want to work with more wallets. So, you know, feel free to reach out to us if you have anything that you think that can work together with Kyber.
Awesome. Leighton, same question to you. What's big coming to PoolTogether over the next couple months?
Yeah, so I think without going into too much detail, a lot of it is around the decentralization, and also I would basically say we're making it much easier to build on top of PoolTogether. So, you know, PoolTogether really honestly launched much more as like an app, not a protocol. And I think we've proven the use case with this app, but now we're building the protocol behind it. And what that means, the difference is that, you know, the protocol will enable, it will include a pool factory where people can create their own pools for their own purposes. It will be much easier for third-party developers to build on top of, things like that. So that's our focus, and you'll be hearing some updates from us along those lines in the very near future.
Awesome. Lastly, Kain, I guess outside of the new synthetic assets that you're putting onto the platform, what other major improvements are coming?
I promised that I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And Jing and the team are going to kill me, but we've got some cool stuff that we've sort of talked about that we're working on L2. You know, you mentioned L2 and optimistic rollup. So we've got some stuff that we're, you know, working on there that hopefully we'll have some, you know, stuff to announce around in the next, you know, I don't know, month or so. So yeah, that's going to be pretty exciting. So a lot of work going into to kind of, you know, testing out the optimistic rollup stuff. Synthetix, exactly.
Yeah, Synthetix. That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah. You'll be one of the first to be doing some rollup stuff. As I mentioned before, Loopring's doing it, but yeah, cool to see more DeFi protocols getting involved there.
Yeah, we really need it. It's pretty clear. So
yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, that's it for the panel. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go on to the community questions now. There was a fair few, so I'm literally just going to scroll through and pick a few out. And then anyone else who wants to ask questions, feel free to keep asking them, and I'll hopefully get to them. I guess we'll start with, because David was bugging us about it, David Hoffman. He asks you, obviously, Kain, what is Synthetix's long-term commitments or relationship with being hands-on to the monetary policy of SNX?
So, I think the sort of setup that we have now is there's a protocol DAO. There are 7 participants, 7 members in that protocol DAO. And the most important change that we're going to make in the short term is this ability for token holders to essentially veto any changes, right? So, it's this kind of credible threat to rough consensus, right? So, if the community were to say, we don't believe that the current monetary policy is effective and we want to change it, then it's possible for it to change. But I think, we've seen this in a lot of protocols. There is this sort of sense of ossification, right? That, things tend to get harder to change over time. And my personal view is I think it'll be really hard for monetary policy to change again in the future. But, we'll certainly see. There's no sort of expectation for the core team in Synthetix. I kind of was opposing the original change, I guess, or the second change, right? So, we certainly have no intent of changing the monetary policy as it stands now, but the community is ultimately in charge of that.
There we go. Yep. Awesome. Thanks. David liked your answer as well. Cool. So a question just came in from Andreas Metzen here. I guess it's an open question. How does the panel see the path for more mainstream money pouring into crypto markets and technology? I guess this is a great question for you, Leighton, since you are on the more consumer side of things. Did you want to have a stab at answering that one?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's a great question for Kain, actually, because of so speaking to the consumer retail side, I think it's kind of purely a function of time. Like, in my opinion, we are very clearly building a 10x better version of one of the most popular consumer financial products in the world, which is prize savings. And for those of you like in England, in the UK, just in the UK alone, there's $100 billion in prize savings accounts. So for me, it's just a function of time. It's like, it's only a function of getting these on-ramps to be better, and the on-ramps are getting better every day. And so it's just a matter of making sure the protocol is built correctly, it's secure, the incentives are right, the governance works, and that way when the on-ramps are better, everything can happen. So I think that's from like the consumer side. But I also think, Andreas's question also kind of goes to Kain in terms of more of the mainstream money going into maybe, I don't know, I could see a more of the trader side of that question too.
And, I mean, again, like it's both Synthetix, it's Kyber as well, right? It's like, how do we convert, the kind of meat space money, right, into, crypto native money, right? And so, this is something that obviously we think about a lot. I know Loi thinks about it. I think everyone who, particularly is facilitating, trading, thinks about how we can kind of onboard more people. So, on-ramps are really critically important, and we are seeing movements in that direction. Samsung adding crypto wallets to phones and things. Be amazing when Apple does the same thing. Apple tends to kind of drive mass adoption whenever they kind of adopt something. So I think something like that, where Apple supporting a crypto wallet or whatever, even if it's a few years away, is going to have a huge impact as well. So we just need to make it as easy as possible to abstract away the complexity. Like right now, we still have layers and layers of complexity, right? You've got MetaMask and all kinds of things. And so I think as we abstract away that complexity, then it becomes easier to onboard real people.
Yeah. Look, Loi, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the recent support from a couple of big phone companies like Samsung and also HTC, I think it's a positive move, right? Now it's much easier for people to set up the crypto wallet, and I think once that is solved, the fiat on ramp is the next one, right? Because I think that's the two major hurdles for people to get into crypto.
Yep, for sure. I guess I could take a stab at answering it as well. I was talking to some friends a couple of days ago about how, obviously the price rises of cryptos bring in a lot of new people. But I think that while it's good that it brings in new people and brings in new money, we need something to keep them here when the prices inevitably go back down, right? It's not just a one-way up. We see these massive crashes happen all the time after like even a small little bull market that we see. So I think that just as some of you said, like building better products, making it easier for people to use these products gets them to stay in the ecosystem for the right reasons instead of just coming and hoping to get rich quick or something like that. They actually come and realize the power of what we're building on top of like Ethereum and all these different DeFi protocols that we're building. So I definitely think that's what's going to drive the most money into, I guess, like the DeFi space in general. And Leighton said a function of time as well, which plays right into that too, I think. All right, Christian Kerr asked me a question, actually. He goes, why the ETH maximalist set? So the ETH maximalist set is basically a set on TokenSets that I created that will only sell ETH once it gets to $10,000. So it'll sell ETH to die once ETH gets to $10,000 per coin. I guess why? Because I thought it was funny. $10,000 is actually like a long-term price target for me for ETH, which some people might consider insane, but it is what it is. But I just thought it was quite funny that people could buy into this set. The buy fee is actually a donation to ETHUB, so any of the buy fees go straight to ETHUB to improve ETHUB there, which is quite cool. And then once it gets to $10,000, I thought it would be really cool just to be like, okay, guys, the set made its first and only trade it will ever make, and it's just to sell all the ETH in it for DAI. So that was basically the logic behind that one. All right, Jason Chu asked a question. Where does most of this discussions happen in your community? Leighton, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I just said Discord is our biggest. Twitter, I would say like we have a lot of interaction, and that's good for information dissemination. But Discord's the most discussion.
Yeah, Kain.
I think Discord, same thing for us, right? It's our Discord is, I think half of them are in here right now. So it's a pretty active community, and it's kind of I think it's where most of the fun stuff happens with Synthetix. So if you're not in the Discord, you're not really in there. So jump in.
Yeah, Loi.
Yeah, for us, we just started our Discord channel, I think just a month ago, and I think we started seeing a lot more, interesting discussion there. Some discussion is still happening on Telegram, but I think we're asking more members to join our Discord channel now.
Yeah, same for TokenSets, definitely. We migrated off Telegram into Discord just because it gives you the ability to make different channels for different topics, which has kept the conversations really clean, and each of our traders has their own channel as well. And yeah, definitely. I love Discord in general. I guess it's funny because it was meant to be just a gaming chat app, right? And now it's become like a thing for every kind of industry. Like, and some people are like, oh, isn't Discord like for kids playing games and stuff? It's like, well, no. Like we got all this professional chats on here now. Like pretty much everyone's on Discord now. So yeah, it's if you're not on Discord, then you definitely get on there and you can join all the chats on there. All right, a question we had from Harith Kamurul. I hope I said that right. I guess it was asking our thoughts on Libra and how they can work with DeFi. I guess, Leighton, I'll start with you there if you had any thoughts. Yeah,
well, I think Libra is interesting for us because I do think if there's ever like a bridge, right, then there's certainly some applicability to the audience that Libra's going for as like essentially just a stable coin. So stablecoin adoption is very good for PoolTogether. That's so in that sense, Libra's good. I don't follow it. I honestly don't track it that closely. I think I'm happy they're trying to do it. I hope they can do it. Actually, I'm not like an anti-Libra person. I think will be net positive for us if it happens, and for us more the decentralized folks. But I wouldn't say I'm not an expert on it.
Kain, your thoughts?
I'm not a huge Libra fan. That said, I think it could act as a bit of a Trojan horse, right? Like, into real crypto. So, I'm not against it in the same way that I'm not against anyone doing anything, right? That doesn't, necessarily, hurt other people. So I think, if Facebook wants to build, a Trojan horse into the rest of crypto, which I think is probably, maybe the best we could hope for, then sure, go nuts.
Yeah, Loi?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment the only thing that I can think of is I think it's going to be a good thing for crypto. I mean, like I think it will introduce a lot more people to general blockchain and public cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way on that. I think originally when they kind of were talking about Libra, when they first announced it, they actually talked about, I think, cryptocurrency and blockchain in their official releases and on the website and things like that, which is, for me, it's quite interesting because that would just lead more people to Google, what is cryptocurrency, what is a blockchain, and bring them into, I guess, as Kain said, real crypto or whatever we like to call it. I don't know how we define real crypto, but you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's definitely, Libra is going to be very interesting. They've kind of, I think they announced yesterday they changed a lot of the way Libra is going to look. David Marcus, the head of the project, announced on Twitter that they changed a few things. And they seem to be moving quite slowly still. And I think that's just a function of how big Facebook is. Like, it's not like a small startup where you can move quite quickly. But yeah, I definitely do agree with you, Kain, that it can be a Trojan horse. And I'm very curious to see how that plays out.
It probably unintentionally, right? Like, I don't think it's an intentional Trojan horse. I just think that's where it might end up. Yeah,
for sure. All right, I'm just going to look for another question here. Oh yeah, from Johnson Lay here. He's asking our thoughts on ETH2 and the migration work needed to be done to migrate each of our projects over from ETH1 to ETH2. Leighton, have you put any thought into this yet?
Well, on that question, I kind of have to punt a little bit and say I'm not our CTO, and so I can't really speak to it in depth. And it's something that obviously is on the horizon, but it does inform some protocol design stuff right now because you're thinking about, okay, how will this work with ETH2? But it's still not, it's not a pressing concern right now, I would say. It's not a pressing conversation for us, at least.
Yeah, Kain?
I mean, we're lunatics, so we'll be there as soon as possible, right? Like, any crazy thing that you can do, you can throw at us, we'll pretty much jump at. So, yeah, I think it's something that we follow pretty closely and we think, quite a bit about. So, we'll be very ready, I think, by the time, E2 launches. So.
Loi?
Yeah, I think our team also have been following ETH2 quite closely. I think the main concern that we want to figure out is the composability impact. I think a lot of people also share the same concern, and I think we'll only have more visibility soon.
Yeah, I think so. I think in general, definitely composability is a big concern for DeFi. I think, what will eventually end up happening on ETH2, at least for the short term, we'll have like a DeFi shard, right? Where like all the DeFi main activity will happen there. And then we'll have other shards that people can go to and things like that. But in terms of like the overall migration from ETH1 to ETH2, I've been seeing a lot more chatter about it lately amongst the researchers myself. There's posts going up all the time about how to do it as kind of smoothly as possible. I guess the ideal scenario is that we migrate as smoothly as possible so that different projects aren't impacted and don't have to do too much work on their own side. Because trying to get like every project to do specific things is really hard. I guess we can look at MakerDAO as one project that has successfully done a large migration, but I think that is still much smaller than trying to migrate, all of Ethereum over as well. But I definitely think it's going to be something that's figured out by the researchers, and it'll be a painless process. There might be some things that break, but this is crypto. Like if something doesn't break, then it wouldn't be an interesting area to be in, right? Cool. All right. Another question, I guess, from Andreas here that just came in for all of us. Do you see any larger companies, financial institutions, or financial institutions on the lookout to steal away their technology for themselves? I think this is a great question that follows on from what we were just talking about with Libra, trying to, I guess, like jump on the train here. But yeah, Leighton, we'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I was just typing a response. I mean, I think my main thought is not so much because it's kind of the classic innovator's dilemma in the sense of like traditional companies would kind of have to destroy their own businesses to mimic what we're doing. And so it's not, I mean, that doesn't apply to everything, right? But I do think that there is a lot of truth in the sense of like a lot of these traditional businesses are built on profiting on things that don't really like port over as well. or at least not apples to apples. And so therefore it's kind of like it's a different value chain. The whole value accrual process is different. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be my answer.
Cool. Yeah, Kain.
Sorry, my children are just coming out for lunch, so we're a little bit later than I was expecting to be.
Yeah,
so,
we can finish it up.
We might. No, that's okay. We might have a bit of noise.
Okay.
But look, I mean, my view is that a lot of the things we're doing are extremely high risk, in a way, and very experimental in a way that a large financial institution might find insane. So I think it's much more likely that they'll watch things play out and then try and co-opt, some of the tech. But I don't think it's a huge concern for us in the immediate term.
Yeah, Loi, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it's most of the technology are open source and free to use, right? But I think what they cannot copy or mimic is the ecosystem or the network, right? I think that is much harder to do. I think we can easily laugh at anyone who wanted to launch a new Ethereum, right? By just copying the code and running their own network.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, this is my ETH maximalist side coming out, but there's been so many, of those Ethereum killers that have just kind of like maybe not killed Ethereum, right? So I guess we're running a little over time here, so I'll ask one more question. This is just a general question because I've seen a few people talking about it in the chat. Regulations in general. Now, I guess this is on top of everyone's mind when it comes to all this sort of stuff. I guess on, each of our protocols are based in different jurisdictions. Like, I mean, a protocol is not really based in a jurisdiction, but the company, I guess building it is. And, for us at TokenSets, it's in the US. Kain, obviously you're based in Australia, Loi in Asia, and Leighton, I guess, in the US as well. I think I got that right. Yeah. So I guess, Leighton, I guess I'll get the US perspective from you. Have you put much thought into the regulatory side of what you're doing with PoolTogether?
Yeah, I mean, generally, we try not to talk about it too much just because it's a complicated area. I would say that we have lawyers, we pay them a lot of money. We are very cognizant of the regulatory concerns and we follow it closely and do everything we can to adhere and take them seriously. And, we're not out there kind of just flaunting the law and just saying, hey, we don't care. We're saying, no, actually, let's do our best to, in good faith, adhere to the regulations that make sense in the spirit of them. So I would say that at a pretty high level. It's definitely something we spend a lot of time and money on, and but it's a complicated thing, and honestly, if you're trying to build any type of protocol, it's going to be one of your biggest line items, I think, in terms of expenses.
Yeah. Kain, from the Australian regulatory side, is there any interesting things that you've had to deal with?
I mean, regulatory gray areas exist because the technology, is moving faster than the regulations, right? Oftentimes, right? The regulations are typically well-meaning and, they're intended to protect people. But then, some new thing comes along and, creates a new way of doing things that isn't, contemplated, right, in those regulations. And I think that Synthetix is one of those things, where it's not clear which particular regulators, are going to look at it. And so I think that for us, we do our best to, do the right thing and make sure that we're as clear as possible about how the protocol works and what the risks are and everything like that. But I also think that DeFi has probably a window of opportunity that's maybe shifted in the last few months, that might take another year or so where regulators are otherwise occupied, right? And may not be scrutinizing things as closely as they otherwise would, which gives us an opportunity to kind of iterate faster, and potentially, build things and be more aggressive than we otherwise might be, just because of the macro landscape. So, I think there's an opportunity there for the people that are willing to take it and willing to, push boundaries. And obviously, Synthetix is definitely one of those projects where we're pretty aggressive about pushing as hard as we can to build stuff.
Awesome. Loi, any interesting insights from, I guess, the Asian side of things?
Yeah, so I think Singapore recently they introduced the payment service bill, right? But I think after talking to several different law that the intention of the payment service bill actually target to centralized players, right? Like centralized changes or OTC desks and things like that. And they haven't they haven't added much clarity on what they want to do with the decentralized platform. So that's why I think, as Kain just mentioned, I think there's a good opportunity window for us, to do good, to build a good example, and to still engaging with the regulators, so that later on, if there's any regulation, it's going to be in favor to us.
Yeah. I guess that's definitely the best approach. Like for us at TokenSets, like we're based in set protocol. So we're based in, I guess, the US. We have to deal with a lot of these regulatory issues. It does kind of like hamper adoption for us with what we want to do. We definitely want to put like, I guess, synthetic assets into our sets, but we have to worry about them because they're class of securities and things like that, and there's a whole regulatory mess that we have to work through to do that. So yeah, I mean, I like Kain's approach of let's just do it and ask for forgiveness later on some things, but I think it definitely depends.
For forgiveness.
Yeah, or just maybe just decentralize the protocol to the point where it's just like we don't need forgiveness.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to be going towards, though, in general, for like these protocols. Like it's do or die, really. And if you're being hampered by this regulation, and then another protocol, I guess, or another team based in a different jurisdiction can just do whatever they want, then you're going to be like, well, let's just cowboy it and see what happens, basically. So yeah, definitely something that I see happening more and more lately, and will continue to happen. Cool. All right, that's it. We'll cut it off here. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, CoinGecko, for hosting, and thank you to the panelists for being on today. I hope you enjoyed this chat about DeFi. I guess if you have any more questions for all of us, jump into our different Discord channels. We're always active on there, and we're happy to answer anything from any of you.
Hey guys, Anthony,
thanks
Loi,
much,
Leighton,
Anthony. And thanks, Trollbox.
Yeah,
it was fun. That was the most fun panel I've had in a while. Like with the just chaos going on, it's good.